Good morning. It's good to be with you this day. Of course, I am not Terry Seibert. Terry and Jeannie are off celebrating their anniversary, and we hope they have a wonderful little getaway in time of celebration of their long nuptials. I want to thank everybody for the congratulations and good wishes for Beatrice and I on our recent wedding. We are just so thoroughly thankful for everybody's good wishes and thoughts for us. So, of course, today is Mother's Day, and I want to welcome all of the mothers that are here this morning. You are so wonderful, mothers. As I was putting this lesson together, it reminded me, and I knew this, but I think I had just forgotten because of maybe my age or senility or who knows what it may be, but how much mothers do. Mothers are unbelievable in what mothers do for their families. Before we get too far into this, because I said I've already welcomed all of the mothers that are here, and we're so thankful that you've joined us today. But there are a couple mothers that are not here that I would like to recognize, two women that are very important to me. Of course, the first being my mom. And unfortunately, my mom is no longer with us. She passed away in October of last year. And of course, we miss her dearly. And but I just want to recognize, of course, my mom. And the other woman is my new wife, my new bride, Beatrice. Of course, she's in Paraguay, and she's, of course, watching the sermon today. And she is so eager and so excited to come and be here with you all and meet you all and get to know you. And I think once you get to know her, you will love her. She's a wonderful person. So before we begin, I'd like today to look at some illustrations and observations about mothers, and then we're going to talk about basically how difficult it is for a little while to be a mother. And I've gathered information from a couple brothers, Melvin Newland and Mike Mazzalongo, from some other Mother's Day sermons they put together that I'd like to share with you today. But before we do, I'm going to share a couple of videos. One video right now that I'd like you to watch for a couple minutes. As the video just says, to all the mothers, we honor you. The sermon today is titled, Honoring Our Mothers. So let's talk about our moms for a moment. Let's talk about some observations and some illustrations. I had a thought in my mind as I was shaving this morning about an analogy. We, of course, appreciate Lucas reading Ephesians chapter 6, 1 through 3. I'd like to read it again, where it says, Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Honor thy father and mother, which is the first commandment with promise, that it may be well with thee, and thou mayest live long on the earth. It says there to honor thy father and thy mother. And the analogy that I was discussing with Josh today, and there's a couple of now I guess we can make from this, is a sports analogy, number one, of comparing a mother and a father to a football team. I would venture to say that maybe the father would be like the starting quarterback on a football team. He's probably the best player on the team. He leads the team and wants and help them to be successful. But I think maybe more importantly, the mother represents the coach of the team. Because you think about it, the coach coordinates everything. Behind the scenes and in public, the coach is leading everything for that team, calling all the plays, making all the decisions. And wouldn't you agree, Chris, would you agree with this, that mothers probably fit that role pretty well?
It'd be hard to put them in just one spot.
Exactly, you're right. Because mothers do so many things. But Chris, of course, could speak to the football analogy since he played so much. The other analogy I would make is comparing it to maybe to the game of chess. You think about it, in the game of chess, what is the most powerful piece on the chessboard? It's the queen, right? And the queen, of course, would be the mother. And, of course, the king would be the father. But the queen can move in any direction, as many spaces as it wants, and it's the most powerful piece on the chessboard. But, of course, the king is when you take the king, it determines whether you win or lose the game. But the powerful piece is the queen. Someone wrote and said, Mother's Day is traditionally the day when children give something back to their mothers for all the spit they produced to wash dirty faces, all the old gum they held in their hands, all the noses they wiped, and all the bloody knees they made well with their kisses. This is the day mothers are rewarded for washing sheets in the middle of the night, driving kids to school when they missed the bus. I never did that. And enduring all those football and soccer games and baseball games and any other sport your children may have played, even in the rain. It's a day of appreciation for making your children finish something they said they couldn't do, not believing them when they said, I hate you, and sharing their good times and their bad. So let's ask the question, what are mothers? Well, mothers are so many things. Mothers are teachers. Mothers are disciplinarians. Mothers are cleaning ladies. Some mothers are gardeners and mowers of lawns. Right, Miss Trudy? Miss Trudy has her own lawnmower. Are you aware of that? And mothers are, of course, nurses and doctors and psychologists and counselors and chauffeurs, and as I said before, coaches. You know, mothers are developers of personalities, molders of vocabularies, and shapers of attitudes. Mothers are soft voices saying, I love you. And mothers are a link to God, which is probably the most important thing that they do. They are a child's first impression of God's love. Mothers are all these things and much, much more. There's a column, you may be familiar with a lady named Irma Bombeck. I think this was quite a while back, but Irma Bombeck had a column in many newspapers. You may be familiar with her. And she told of God and the act of creating mothers. And she said on the day that God created mothers, he'd already worked long overtime. And an angel said to him, "Lord, you sure are spending a lot of time on this one." And the Lord turned and said, "Have you read the specs on this model? She is supposed to be completely washable, but not plastic. She is to have 180 moving parts, all of them replaceable. And she's to have a kiss that will heal everything from a broken leg to a broken heart. She is to have a lap that will disappear whenever she stands up. And she is to be able to function on black coffee and leftovers. And she's supposed to have 6 pairs of hands." 6 pairs of hands, said the angel. That's impossible. And God said, "It's not the 6 pairs of hands that bother me," said the Lord. "It's the 3 pairs of eyes." She's supposed to have one pair that sees through closed doors, so that whenever she says, "What are you kids doing in there?" she already knows what they're doing in there. She has another pair in the back of her head to see all the things she's not supposed to see, but must see. And then she has one pair right in the front that can look at a child who goofed and communicate love and understanding without saying a word. How true is it the look that a mom can give to anybody, and you know what that look means? The angel said, "That's too much. You can't put that much in one model. Why don't you rest for a while and resume your creating tomorrow?" "No, I can't," said the Lord. "I'm close to creating someone very much like myself. I've already come up with a model who can heal herself when she is sick, who can feed a family of 6 with 1 pound of hamburger, and who can persuade a 9-year-old to take a shower." Then the angel looked at the model of motherhood a little more closely and said, "She's too soft." "Oh, but she is tough," said the Lord. "You'd be surprised at how much this mother can do." "Can she think?" asked the angel. "Not only can she think," said the Lord, "but she can reason and compromise and persuade." Then the angel reached over and touched her cheek. "This one has a leak," he said. "I told you that you couldn't put that much in one model." "That's not a leak," said the Lord. "That's a tear." "What's a tear for?" asked the angel. "Well, it's for joy, for sadness, for sorrow, for disappointment, for pride." "You're a genius," said the angel. And the Lord said, "Oh, but I didn't put it there." Very thought-provoking. So let's make a few more observations before we talk about how difficult it really is to be a mom. You know, we can understand the feelings of a mother with 3 children who was asked, if you had to do it over again, would you still want children? "Yes," she replied, "but not the same ones." Very, very thought-provoking. So we talked about Irma Bombeck and how she had said that God said he was creating a mother, and he said, "I'm close to creating something very much like myself." And I think that's so true, especially the love that a mother gives is so close to the love that we receive from our Father in heaven. And I suppose that is why today is special, because we recognize that a mother's love is probably the closest example we have to God's love. You know, it's a love that goes through the valley of the shadow of death to bring life into being. It is a love that sacrifices itself over and over again and would even dare to lay down its life for its own offspring. Let me share one more story or illustration with you regarding this story is told out of World War II and the Holocaust that took lives of millions. It's about a man named Solomon Rosenberg and his family, and it's a true story. So please listen closely. Solomon Rosenberg and his wife and their 2 sons and his mother and father were arrested and placed in a Nazi concentration camp. It was a labor camp, and the rules were simple. As long as you can do your work, you are permitted to live. When you become too weak to do your work, then you are exterminated. Rosenberg watched his mother and father marched off to their deaths, and he knew that next would be his youngest son, David, because David had always been a frail child. So every evening, Rosenberg came back to the barracks after his hours of labor and searched for the faces of his family. When he found them, they would huddle together, embrace one another, and thank God for another day of life. One day, though, Rosenberg came back and didn't see those familiar faces. He finally found his oldest son, Joshua, in a corner, huddled, weeping and praying. He said, "Josh, tell me it's not true." And Joshua turned and said, "It's true, Papa. Today David was not strong enough to do his work, so they came for him." "But where is your mother?" asked Mr. Rosenberg. "Oh, Papa," he said, "when they came for David, he was afraid and he cried. Mama said, 'There is nothing to be afraid of, David,' and she took his hand and went with him." That is true love of a mother, an example of true love that a mother has for their child. So let's talk for a few minutes about why it's not easy, easy to be a mother. It's interesting to note that we live in an age where we have established a day where we honor mothers. We have taken something that is basically a religious concept, we put a date on it, and then we commercialized it for the purpose of profit. That's what we do in this country, isn't it? And a good example of this sort of thing is Christmas, right? The birth of Jesus is a documented fact in the Bible, but the world has created a festival out of it and made it the engine that drives the economy of half the businesses in the world. Honors commerce more than Christ. Mother's Day is the same. To honor one's mother is a commandment from God found in the Old Testament in Exodus chapter 20 and verse 12. As well as in the New Testament, Jesus mentions this command in Matthew, Mark, and in Luke, and in Paul, as Lucas read in Ephesians chapter 6 and verse 2. But society has picked up this theme and turned it into a profitable day of cards and gifts. You know, I'm not against the idea of a special day for moms. I'm fully supportive of that. I just want you to realize that it wasn't man's idea. Man only figured out a way to make money with the idea God had already come up with. Did you ever wonder why God gave this command to honor fathers and mothers in the first place? He said to do so would bring blessings on the children, but why was the command needed anyways? I believe he did it because of his mercy. He knew that after Adam's sin, it wasn't going to be easy to be a mother. And here's why. The first reason it's not easy to be a mother is because giving birth was not going to be easy. You know, in the perfect world of the Garden of Eden, giving birth would have, if we can imagine, been natural, joyful, and relatively easy. But after the sin of Adam, however, God declared that this process would become very difficult and painful, as we see in Genesis chapter 3, verse 16. Woman has been designed by God to conceive and bear children. And regardless of any other gift or talent a woman may have and develop, the ability to bear children is primary for her as an individual because of her biological and psychological makeup are directly tied to this fact regardless of the career she may choose. Whatever ways science can develop to engineer human conception and development, a woman conceiving and giving birth to a child is and always will be a far superior method for human reproduction and social order. You know, the basic role as a life giver has been from the beginning a painful process. You know, carrying children, bringing them into this world, nursing them to the point of independence is filled with pain and discomfort. Think about it, thousands of years and thousands of medical advances later, childbearing remains painful and many times dangerous. If for no other reason, the commandment to honor one's mother was established to acknowledge her pain in giving us life. It's not easy being a mom because a mother meant being a wife, and also being a wife would mean submission to a man. Think about this for a moment. The sin of Adam not only separated man from God, but also destroyed the balance in the relationship that existed between man and woman. Before Adam's fall, the sin he committed, God appointed that both man and woman would rule in cooperation over the creation. Their natures were different, but their positions were the same. However, after their sin, the weakness of their flesh would cause them to use their different gifts in sinful ways. Man would use his natural strength to dominate, to obtain with force what was once granted freely. The woman would use her natural complexity to usurp the position once equally granted to her. And for this reason, God assigned the role of submission to the woman and the role of struggle to the man, once again in Genesis chapter 3, verses 16 through 19. So it would never be easy being a mother because this role would be tied to the difficult task of submitting one's will to another imperfect human being in order to demonstrate faith in God, establish peace in the home, and of course to guarantee social order. So we need to honor mothers because they've given their bodies up in order to produce ours, and they've humbled their wills in order to produce what we call family. And then the third reason why it's difficult to be a mother is that mothers have to watch their children suffer and sometimes die. You know, it's bad enough that there is great pain necessary to bring a child into the world. But mothers also have to experience the pain that their children feel in their lives as well. You know, Mike talks about what he learned in counseling is that there's no medicine or counseling technique that can neutralize that thing inside a mother that enables her to feel what her child feels. Sometimes long before and after the child feels it. From the beginning, mothers have had to suffer because of what their children did and what was done to their children. Think about Eve, how Eve agonized over the murder of one of her sons by the other. Think about Sarah, how she suffered a lifetime because she watched another woman bear the child she wanted and died without seeing a wife for the son she finally had. And Hagar, she wept over the danger of death that threatened her only son Ishmael as they were banished from Abraham's household. Leah, she witnessed the rape of her daughter Dinah by Shechem. And Moses' mother had to abandon her child to save his life. Samuel's mother gave him up because of an oath. And think about Bathsheba. She watched her child die because of her sin. And this is very sobering. Think about the man Job and Job's wife, how she experienced the death of all her children at one time. And then Mary, how she observed her eldest son, Jesus, humiliated, tortured, and publicly executed by the people he had loved, helped, and healed. So there's no greater pain imaginable than for the one who gave you life to watch you waste the life she gave you or see someone else take that life from you. Mothers deserve honor because no one experiences the pain and hurts that life brings longer or more deeply than those who bring us into this world and who sometimes experience the heartbreak of having to see us leave as well during their own lifetimes. Children, honor your father and your mother indeed, for that is right in the Lord, because giving birth is difficult. Being a wife is humbling, and seeing you suffer is painful. God is so wise in that he created life in such a way that a woman was originally taken out of a man, and from then on, all men were taken out of woman. Think about that for a moment. This beautiful cycle repeats itself in so many ways in our lives. The experience of caring for our children and then having them honor and care for us in old age is good and right in the sight of God. 1 Timothy chapter 5 and verse 3 tells us, honor widows who are widows indeed. So today, we have tried to demonstrate why mothers deserve honor, not only on this day, but every day for their special role in God's plan for life. Before we wrap up the lesson, I'd like to show one more video, and then we will conclude the lesson, the sermon. So I would like to close our lesson, our sermon today, by offering, of course, an invitation to those who see a need in their lives to be right with God. Of course, if you've not confessed Jesus and been baptized, you now have that opportunity. We ask that you'll please come now and receive forgiveness in the waters of baptism. But of course, if you have been a child of God, but you need to be restored because of sin or unfaithfulness, or need to identify yourself in a family with this church, we will pray with you and for you in that regard. So if you are subject to invitation, if you need a prayer, or if you need to be a mom, or be better to your mom, we ask that you'll now come forward and take the front seat.